a 5-figure check writing time for money that we could have put again against the repairs when we got the loan on the property, but we didn't do it. And that was tough. Hey, it's Mark Zimmerman, President and Chief Operating Officer of Renters Warehouse Houston. I am so glad that you're able to join me today. Today's topic that we're going to talk about is what not to do in real estate, or kind of like I tell my kids, do as I say, not as I do or did, right? I think it's going to give you some insight in terms of just a few things to think about. And we're going to do it in a funny way. I'm going to actually impart real life stories for each one of my little tips. So I think it'll be more applicable and also maybe more entertaining if you actually hear real life stories that are my real life stories about where maybe I wasn't being the smartest or thinking the things ahead or whatever. So hopefully you enjoy the video and you get a little something out of it. But anyway, I've got my little sheet over here of some of my tips that I want to impart over to you, things not to do. I can tell you after buying, fixing up, and selling 400 plus properties, owning over 60 rental properties at one point, at any given time having a couple dozen owner finance notes, and then also overseeing over 2,000 short-term hard money investment loans over the years. I've seen a lot, done a lot, and screwed up a lot. So anyway, hopefully this will be helpful. So let's first talk about my first tip. I think it's a funny story. The tagline to this one, number one, is if they praise Jesus, you probably paid too much for the property. So several years ago, we hadn't been opened very long in terms of our real estate investment business, and we had the opportunity to purchase a property. We had done all of our research, our homework. We'd figured out that the maximum that we could buy for that property was going to be about $70,000. And that was going to keep us underneath the 70% after repaired value number that we needed in order to make sure we didn't have to bring any money to the table for our hard money loan, which we always tried to do. And that included repairs as well. So we had already met with this person once, and this was a pretty big and an intimidating person. We were still very green and wet behind the ears and hadn't done this very long, less than a year. And I was really concerned about it. So I asked my business partner to come along, and we figured out, like I said, that we could pay $70,000 max for the house. That was what our offer was going to be. And we decided that we'd start out at $64,000 to give us a little wiggle room to negotiate up to if needed. So we sat down on the couch, talked to this person. They were being really closed off about everything. A couple times, not very hard and not very well, did we try and find out what they were expecting to get for the property, and that was the key here, right? We didn't do a good job of finding out what the expectation was, and that's the tip to this little story. And so after not really getting too much feedback and not really knowing that we really needed to work for feedback from the seller, we kind of looked at each other and said, well, I'm afraid that the best that we're going to be able to do based on all the repairs and the comparable sales in the area and the discount that we need, I think the best that we're going to be able to do is $64,000. And that person jumped up off the couch, raised their hands up in the air and said, praise Jesus, thank you, Jesus, praise Jesus. So, do you think we left a little money on the table? I would say so. Obviously, the number that they were expecting and absolutely willing to take was well below the amount that we offered. And we've since learned that he who speaks first loses in negotiation, right? And you really have to do a good job of drawing out what that expectation is, whether it's an actual number, whether it's a range. One of the tips that I've found that's worked since then is to use the silent method, right? Just say, listen, is there what number are you really looking for? What's the number that you think you really need to sell this property quickly, in the next 4 or 5 days and at a discount to me, who's going to be paying cash? And then I go, And that silence, they'll jump in and they'll tell you most of the time. So anyway, tip number one, story number one, make sure that you find out what people want before you start throwing numbers out there, because you may leave a lot of money on the table. So, hope that was enjoyable. So, story number two, something we learned on a very early property again. We bought a 1940s pier and beam, shotgun style shoebox house that I like to call them. We've all seen them. Paid not very much for it. And because it was pier and beam, because it was very old, the floor was kind of wavy, but we thought it was pretty level. I mean, it seemed pretty level to us. So we went ahead and spent $22,000, $23,000 in getting this house up to really looking nice. Basically redid everything. New sheetrock, new windows, new doors, new cabinets, new tile, everything, right? So we got it all ready to go, and man, it just looked fantastic. But every time that we got it under contract, the buyer's inspector and appraisers would come out from the lender, and they all say, well, we can't loan on this because the foundation is not level. It's not level. We thought it was pretty good, and we were trying to save some money, and we didn't think it'd be that big of a problem. So we didn't fix it. One, when we had the repair funds to do so, we could have just lumped it into our repair draws. And two, found out that, well, when we did go ahead and actually level the foundation as needed so we could sell it, because everybody was coming at that time with loans in order to purchase the property, once our foundation folks got the floor level, guess what happened to all the sheetrock seams, our brand new sheetrock that had been taped and floated and textured and painted? Yep, they all cracked. Every bit of those walls, every sheet in that whole house, every seam cracked because they got moved around, right? Then what else happened? Well, our brand new doors that were pre-hung in frames that we installed, they wouldn't shut anymore. These had to be adjusted. Windows had to be adjusted. We even cracked some tile that we'd installed in some of the wet areas from the foundation adjustment. So my tip on that little story is, if the foundation seems okay, but you're not sure, and there's a need, go ahead and just do the foundation. And regardless, if you're doing foundation work, do the foundation work before you do anything else, because it's going to mess up everything. We actually had to go to the extra expense of basically repairing and fixing all the sheetrock, replacing all those cracked tiles, going around and having to plumb back the doors, fix the windows. It was a nightmare. But we got it done. Cost us a lot of money, and therefore we didn't make as much money on that property as we thought we would, because we didn't fix the foundation first. So anyway, the foundation isn't that bad. It should just be fix the foundation. So I hope that helps as well. So that's number two on my things of not to do. So number three. I'm buying this house or this package of houses with residents, tenants already in them. They're happy, they're paying rent. I don't need to do any of those big repairs. They're happy. What's the problem? When you purchase a property, or in my story, several properties, this was a package of, I think, 23 properties that we purchased all at once. Rental properties, all rented. Not in a great part of town, not great properties, but hey, good properties. We got them at a good discount, the discount we needed, and they were already rented, right? We made the decision that we weren't going to do any type of big repairs on them because, hey, why would we? The residents are happy. The houses seem to be in pretty good shape. Well, out of those 23 properties, 11 of them had HVACs. Well, all of them had really old heat and air systems, right? They were 20 years plus, but they were kind of working, so we thought we could avoid spending a bunch of money on new AC and heater systems, and just didn't do it. Just chose it. They're working now, and they're old, but they'll be okay. Well, because we didn't do that, the first time cold weather hit, coming about October, November, as it does in Houston, 11 out of those 23 properties, heaters weren't working. We had to replace several of those heaters. We had to repair all of the rest of them. and it was a 5-figure check writing time for money that we could have put again against the repairs when we got the loan on the property, but we didn't do it. And that was tough because I didn't have that kind of money just sitting around, and so it was a lean Christmas and a lean time for all of us because that was a check we weren't ready to write. So anyway, another tip there is if you buy property that's already occupied, the renter is in it, just because they're in the property doesn't mean that it doesn't need any repairs. And if you have CapEx repairs, those big capital expenditures like roofs, heat and AC systems, think about some of the big ticket items. Go ahead and do them when you purchase the property while you have the ability to possibly finance or at least source the cash so you don't have any hickeys or surprises or hiccups, right? Down the road a few months. Now, on a side note on this story, also, what do tenants do when they have a new landlord? Someone buys a property. What's the first thing that they do? So if you're thinking, put in 5,000 maintenance tickets for all those things that the other landlord refused to do, even if they were silly, like tightening up a door handle on an interior closet door or whatever, you're going to get hit with many repair tickets oftentimes when you become the new landlord on a rental property that's already rented. So you're also going to have to be ready for that little fun and plan for it before you purchase the property. So anyway, the big takeaway though here is those big ticket items on rental property, just go ahead and do them when you purchase the property, and you're going to be much happier, and it's going to be easier to absorb that cost. So what's the next one? How about number 4, falling in love with the buy? Falling in love with the property, right? The problem with falling in love either with the individual property or just getting caught up in, oh man, I got to buy 10 houses this month and I'm going to do anything I can do to get those 10 houses. Sometimes you might catch yourself lying to yourself, whether you know it or not, when it comes to evaluating the after repaired value of the property or when it comes to evaluating the amount of repairs that are involved in the property, right? Because you want that buy. So as I've said before in other videos, what we used to do was if it fit the numbers, we'd buy it. And if it didn't fit the numbers, we'd walk away. We tried very hard to do that. But if you're going to do that, you need to make sure that the numbers are correct. Because it fits the numbers, but you've lied to yourself about what those numbers are. You're not helping yourself, and you're actually taking money out of your own pocket. And here's what I mean by that. You need to make sure that when you're coming up with the after repaired value of the property that you're thinking about buying, right? And you have all these different comparable sales out there over the last 6 months in the neighborhood of similar properties. Guess what? If you're looking to buy a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, no-car garage, 1945 shoebox house like I talked about earlier, you can't use a 1970 brick 322 on a slab home as a comparable. I'm sorry, you can't. But you do that, guess what? You'll be able to get that after repaired value of what you think your house should sell for up, which means that maybe you could pay a little more for the property. Or here's the other thing that you do because you're trying to buy that house. You start convincing yourself that it doesn't need all those repairs that you originally thought it needed. So maybe instead of $15,000 in repairs, you pare it down and decide you only need to do 10 so you can, again, fit the numbers and buy the property. In both those scenarios, you're going to lose money. Not a good idea. And here's the big part. If you use, say, short-term hard money loans like we did on all of our purchases, they're going to come in and they're going to give you the real number for the after repaired value, and they're going to give you the real number for the repairs, and then it's going to be outside of those numbers. It's going to be difficult for you to go ahead and finish the purchase of that property unless you bring a lot of money to the table. So don't get involved or don't get emotionally involved with a property. And certainly don't get emotionally involved in the buying process, because trying to buy a lot of properties doesn't mean that you should lie to yourself to make that happen. Does that make sense? Anyway, hope that was a good one. What's the next one here that I have down? How about this? Getting carried away when you're doing the rehab of a property. And here's what I mean by that. We've all done it. You buy a house that you think the after repaired value on it's going to be $130,000. But all of a sudden you think maybe we ought to take out this wall to make it an open living concept. And boy, we better put in those marble countertops, right? It'll sell quicker and maybe get some more money. Maybe not. We're going to go with those higher end cabinets, blah, 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 blah. If you start over rehabbing on a property, you're going to lose money. Now, I always say you want to have the nicest property in the neighborhood at the cheapest price if you want to get the lowest days on market. It's common sense. Nicest property, cheapest price, yours will sell next, right? Unless it's next to a meat rendering plant or something. So you definitely want to do that. But I'm just saying, don't go crazy on the rehab. You know, all these shows now, when I first started 21 years ago, there was no fix this house, flip this house, flip and flicks, lover, list it, blah, 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 blah. There's none of that, right? But now there is. And you might get tempted by watching those shows and start ripping out walls and putting in all this crazy stuff that costs a lot of money. Don't do it. Now, if it's a $700,000, $800,000 house, yeah, you might want to go ahead and spend that money. But guess what? You figured that out at the beginning, and you got the budget for it. So anyway, just don't over rehab on lower end houses. Also, don't over rehab on rental properties you plan on renting either, because that's a whole different type of repair. So anyway, just keep that in mind. What's next? How about this? Number 6, I think it is. Taking pest control in your own hands. So my buddy Rich has the same story that I do, very similar. I was out looking at a house, and we ended up, we were just going to manage the rental property on it. So I was out there looking at it to decide what needed to be done in terms of rent-ready repairs, right? So we get the property ready quickly. And I'm out in the backyard, and I see just a few bees flying around, and I think, oh, there's a bee somewhere. I better take care of that. I always carry wasp spray in my car. I always carry flea spray in my car, because those fleas will get you on those old houses you're looking at. I even carry mentholatum in my car, because I've been in a few houses where I put mentholatum underneath my nose because they smelt so bad, but that's a whole nother story I'll save for another time. So I saw that these bees were swarming around, maybe 4 or 5 bees were swimming around this cable box that was in the backyard, right? And I could see they're going in and out of this little hole. So, like an idiot, and these weren't bees, these were actually wasps, I went ahead and just started spraying into the hole, thinking I'd kill those few bees that were flying around. Well, it turns out that was a wasp's nest inside of that cable box, and there were hundreds, if not thousands, of wasps that came flowing out of that thing. And man, I hadn't run that fast in 30 years. It was a 6-foot picket fence that I actually grabbed and jumped and cleared without even taking time to open the gate to run around and go into the front door, because the front door was unlocked. And man, they followed me there. I didn't get stung, but man, what a rude awakening. So, if you're going to deal with wasps or any type of pest control, rather than trying to help out or to save a buck on yourself, just go ahead and let the professionals do it. And remember, if they're bees and not wasps, there are beekeepers that will come out and relocate those bees and not kill them, and just relocate them for you at no charge or a small charge, which I think is fantastic. We know that the bee population is dwindling, and that's scary because they pollinate everything, all the food we ate. So anyway, if it's bees, get somebody to come out. If it's wasps, like I was getting chased by, make sure that you just let a professional come out, because it's just not worth it. So anyway, taking pest control in your own hands. I've never run that fast, and I certainly have not grabbed onto and cleared a 6-foot picket fence like that since I was probably 15. So anyway, last one that I would suggest is carpet's cheaper, right? Hey, I'll just put in carpet, especially in rental properties. You might want to go ahead and put in a nice carpet if you're doing a buy, fix, up, and sell. Lots of people like carpet in the bedrooms. I get that, and the closets that are in the bedrooms. So I'm not against carpet for necessarily selling property, but I will say that I'm against carpet or any non-hard surface when it comes to rental property. Okay? You should have hard surfaces throughout your rental property, and that could be in the form of tile, that could be in the form of hardwoods, that could be in the form of rolled laminate, the vinyl rolled flooring. That's nice enough in some lower end houses, especially if they're pier and beam type structures where the floor is kind of not perfect. What we do now in all of our rental properties personally is we use the luxury vinyl flooring, LVF. It looks like hardwood planks. What's fantastic about it though is because it's very thick. We get the thicker, not the smaller vinyl flooring, the luxury vinyl flooring planks. Because it's vinyl, it can get wet and it won't expand. It can take a lot of water. A dog can pee on it. You can drop a fish tank on it, and for the most part, it's going to be fine. Whereas if you use that Pergo laminate hardwood flooring, that stuff's like cardboard. It's particle board underneath the laminate. So when water hits that, it absorbs like a sponge and will bubble up and pop out. And so we used to do Pergo laminate in almost every one of our rental properties along with tile. Now we use luxury vinyl flooring throughout because it just is so durable. You can take a hammer to the higher end stuff and you can't scratch it. So if you have tenants that have pets, and they say 64% of tenants today have pets. So if you're going to have tenants that have pets, you probably want to have that luxury vinyl flooring because it's going to be extremely durable. So I know carpet's cheaper. I know that you can put it in quickly. However, with carpet, you're going to be replacing that carpet every 1 to 2 years, and that's the truth. Residents, tenants are hard on carpet, and they don't vacuum like we do. They don't keep it up like we do, and it's just going to end up costing you more money in the long run. So no carpet, even if it's cheaper. Go with the hard surfaces, whether that's rolled vinyl flooring, luxury vinyl flooring, tile, even if you want to go with a Pergo, laminate, whatever, hardwoods, but just go with hard surfaces and you'll be much happier. So there's my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little stories, little tips for today. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but anyway, I hope you found some value into this discussion. I hope you got a little chuckle about a few of my little stories. And as always, I certainly wish you the best in your real estate investment journey. And always reach out if you need anything. We love talking about real estate, and that's all we do. So anyway, take care, and I'm Mark, and I'm out. Thanks for watching, everyone. We really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe below.